Welcome back to the channel. We're excited to have you here. Today we're going to be talking about open enrollment. Now, I may say open enrollment and you may have no idea what that is, but don't fret. That's exactly what we're going to spend some time looking at here today. Now, what is open enrollment? Now, if we take a step back, when we work for our employers, we actually have many benefits available to us beyond just what our employers pay us. Things like health insurance, disability insurance, life insurance, legal plans, 401k or 403b plans, and FSAs or health savings accounts or HSAs. All of these things combined actually make up our entirety of our compensation package provided through our employers. Some of these options we are only able to change once a year. This once a year time period is what's called open enrollment. So that's exactly what open enrollment is. It's the time period with which everything is opened up so you can now enroll or maybe even disenroll or make changes to some of your benefit packages. Starting off with health insurance. This is generally one of the biggest benefits that an employer will provide you, and it's really important to make a very intentional and clear decision for you and your family. Now, how do you go about making that decision? A couple of the things you need to be looking out for are deductibles, are out-of-pocket maximums, amounts, and the premium amounts that you're going to be paying. When you account for all of these variables combined, as well as what you anticipate that you're going to spend for medical care in this upcoming year, you can determine what's actually going to be the good plan versus not the good plan. Now, we have done other videos on this before, walking you through how to actually make this determination of deductibles and premiums, out-of-pocket maximums. So we would encourage you to take a look at that video. It should be linked in the description down below. Now, after health insurance, we're going to talk about disability insurance. None of us think we're going to get disabled. None of us think that anything's going to happen to us, but the reality is something could. So if your employer offers disability insurance, quick word that not every employer does, but if your employer does, here's what we would encourage you to take a look at. There are two separate types. There's going to be short-term and long-term. Oftentimes, these are abbreviated as STD, standing for short-term disability, or LTD, which is long-term disability. The more important of these two options is going to be your long-term disability plan. This essentially means that if you have a disability that lasts for an extended amount of time, you will receive a monthly payment from the disability insurance plan to replace your income. Because if you're not working, if you're disabled, you actually won't be receiving an income. So it's important that you have income replacement. Now, I said that short-term disability wasn't as important as long-term. This is because as a core part of your financial plan, we would highly encourage that you have an emergency fund saved up of at least 3 months, if not longer, of your monthly spending, so that way you can weather the storm in case something does happen with your finances. Next up, we have life insurance. Now, with your life insurance election, we would encourage you to take whatever your employer is going to give you for free. Oftentimes, this amount will be $50,000, maybe $25,000, or a percentage of your salary. If that's the case, it's offered free of charge. Obviously, it's a no-brainer to take it without question. Now, where might you want to question whether or not you take this benefit? This is going to take the form of whether you have to pay for the premiums. If you have to pay the premiums on the policy, you may have to question whether it's cheaper for you to take up your employer's coverage or a separately owned policy. Now, let's say you're in a situation where because of an illness or a disease, it's hard for you to qualify for coverage separately, elsewhere, outside, purchasing it directly with an insurance agent. Through your employer, you may have the option to buy up many more years or multiples of your annual salary. We would encourage you to take a look at that. That's oftentimes one of the easiest ways to get life insurance without having to going through significant underwriting. Now on to the legal plans. In certain rare circumstances, we may all have to require the use of an attorney, whether that's for our estate planning documents, think wills, our powers of attorney, trusts, things like that, or even getting out of traffic tickets, something as simple as that. It's really important to be mindful of the fact that we actually might have available to us a legal plan through our employer. Generally with these plans, we pay a very small monthly amount through our paychecks. In exchange, we get access to attorneys at a significantly reduced cost, and these attorneys still provide the exact same services that they would had you hired them directly and separately. We oftentimes like to encourage the use of a legal plan, if it's available, for clients to actually get their estate documents done. Reason being, estate documents are expensive. It's challenging to get them in place, it takes time, and worst of all, it costs a lot of money. So if we have an option to reduce that cost significantly, however, also getting the same documents in place, it makes sense to try and go ahead and go that route. Moving on to your 401k or maybe your 403b. This type of benefit is actually one of the few ones that is not required to go through your open enrollment process. That said, because you're going through the open enrollment process, it may make sense to actually double check that your elections are set up properly for your 401k or your 403b. Are your contribution amounts set appropriately according to the rest of your financial plan? Do you have the right investments associated with these plans? Do you have beneficiaries elected? As you're going through the open enrollment process, which is generally once a year, we encourage you to double check your 401ks, your 403bs, to ensure all these things are accounted for such that you're not leaving anything to chance. Finally, we have FSAs or HSAs. Now these types of accounts coincide with your health insurance plan. With FSAs, you generally can only make elections once a year. With HSAs, you should be able to make changes to these throughout the year. However, it's important to note that your ability to contribute to one of these accounts directly depends on whether you are enrolled in a particular type of health insurance plan with your employer. As a rule of thumb, if you have what's called a high deductible health plan, you generally can invest in an HSA. If you don't have a high deductible health plan, you're going to be looking at the FSA. The FSA for sure is a contribution that can only be done during the open enrollment period. So it's important to make sure that your benefits are set up the way that you need, because we can't change these throughout the year. So if we recap really quickly, what are the benefits that we can change during this open enrollment period? What are the ones that we don't have to change during this open enrollment period? Going down the list here, we've got health insurance. That's an open enrollment period benefit. Disability, open enrollment benefit period. Life, legal, FSAs, those are all the benefits that you will likely only be able to make changes to once a year. Now there are some circumstances with which you may be able to make changes more than once a year. That's going to come in the shape of what's called a qualifying life event, or a QLE. Now what is a qualifying life event? This is really just a time period where you either have a significant change in your life circumstances, you gain a new job, maybe you lose your job, maybe your spouse loses their job, you have a kid, you adopt a child. Any one of these things may trigger a qualifying life event, which opens up a brand new 30-day window for you to make changes to all of these benefits that we've gone through here before. Keep in mind, with your 401k or your 403b, you should still be able to make changes to these throughout the year, so you're not locked in. However, we would encourage you to still review these during your open enrollment period. Now, I mentioned that open enrollment period is a really short period. Unfortunately, it is incredibly short, oftentimes only 2 weeks with some employers. Sometimes it can be longer, maybe a month or so, but it's not uncommon to see this period shrink down to a 2-week period. Generally speaking, this time period falls within the latter part of the year. Think the start of September all the way through the middle of November. This is because these benefit elections are generally starting on the calendar year. So all of your employers want to know, are you electing into this benefit or this benefit by the start of the year so that they can prep their systems ahead of time appropriately. Now, we understand there's a lot that goes on with these open enrollment periods. We understand that there's a lot that goes on with these benefits in general. Unfortunately, it's too challenging to unpack for everybody that would be watching this video what specifically benefit is going to be best for you. If you have questions about your benefits and you want to learn more and figure out what might make the most sense for you and your family, please let us know. Reach out. We would love to contact and connect with you to figure out what those answers might be. We have lots of other videos about all things related to finance and financial planning. We'd encourage you to check those out as well. Some of the ones I've referenced here earlier of health insurance or whatnot should be linked in the description below. But again, if you have questions and you want to reach out and find some answers, we would love to help. Thank you. We look forward to seeing you next time.